in this lesson, we'll continue to use some splines in different ways to create some thrusters and pipes. So let's start with the thrusters. I'm going to go ahead on the pod main and select some of the polygons at the bottom. And let's just go ahead and extrude that down just to create kind of a little section down here. Now I want to create a couple of splines. So let's go ahead and create a rectangle spline. And I'm just going to move it back here. And I want to orient it along a different axis. So let's go ahead and do the YZ axis, or in this case, the ZY axis. And let's go ahead and change our width down a bit and our height. So it's something like that. All right, let's go ahead and turn on rounding and decrease the radius so we get just sort of rounded corners, kind of like that. All right, now once we've got this, I'm going to go ahead and make that editable. And I'm going to go to points, and I want to actually, if I can right click on this, I want to create outline. So go to create outline, and then I'm going to actually pull this out. So this basically just creates a copy and gives you another spline just like that. Let's go ahead and I'm just going to scale this whole thing down just a little bit. All right. And so what we can do now is go ahead and add an extrude NURBS, pop it under that, change the values here, and extend that back and in. You can go ahead and under the caps, change our caps. On the other end, we don't need a cap, so we can change that. But I can go ahead and increase that to increase the smoothness. Okay. Let's say we want to modify this shape. So let's use a deformer to do that. I'm going to make a copy of this first. And on that copy, I'm going to go ahead and scale this down a little bit. And let's just pull it in a little. Okay. And let's go ahead and create an FFD. That's a free form deformer. And so we'll go ahead and I'll just move it sort of into rough position here. I'm going to take the number of grid points down. So it's basically just a plain cube. Okay, let's go ahead and just scale it so it kind of fits with the shape that we've got there. Okay, now if we drop it into the extrude NURBS underneath here, what we really want to do is go ahead and create a null. And I'll drop it into the null, and then I want to select the points on the back of the FFD. And let's go ahead and scale those up, and you can see that it is affecting the shape. So now we're getting this sort of tapered effect. Okay, we can go ahead and pull it back into the surface. If we wanted to take these points here and scale them up or down, we can taper it kind of like that. Okay, then we can take this one in the center once again, and we can kind of scale that down a little bit. Oops, wrong one. This one is the one I need to select. Kind of take that down a little bit. All right, so something like that. Now we want to create some pipes connecting the sides of this thruster up to the sides of this. And so to do this, I'm going to draw out some splines. We're going to use these in a little different way. So we're going to use a sweep NURBS. So let's go to the side view. And we can use, let's just use cubic. And so we want to click to place curve points. All right. And so we want to go ahead and just place some rough points here. Okay, just a few points, doesn't really matter. Okay, we can go ahead and move those that spline over to the side. I actually want to make this whole thing a little bit bigger. So let's go ahead and actually going to take the spline, and because the center is at the spline, I want to sort of move that up the chain. And so I'm going to go to Mesh, Axis Center, and I want to center parent to, and that will center the extrude to this. And then I want to do that again, and that will set the null to this center. Now we can scale the whole thing up a little bit. Make that a little bit bigger. Let's take this one and kind of move it down a little. Okay. Now back to our spline here. I want to go ahead and set this where I want our tube to be. So in this case, I want my one end of the tube to kind of go into the side of the ship up by the vent here. Okay. And then I can go ahead and set the other end to penetrate into the thruster. So I'm just selecting these points, and then I just want to kind of move them around to create a nice tight line there. Kind of move them in towards the ship a bit. So it still kind of sticks out. So something like that. You may want it to come down so it kind of sticks more, goes more straight into the side versus coming in at an angle. And now what we want is some sort of shape to extend along this curve that we've created. So let's use a circle. And now to generate this, we want to go ahead and create a sweep NURBS, which we haven't used yet. So let's drop the circle and the spline under the sweep NURBS. Let's put the circle on top. And now, as you'll see, it's taking the circle and it's sort of sweeping it along the spline. So if we take the circle and we reduce the radius, you can see that that is actually creating that tube shape. Okay, so we can make it bigger or smaller. Okay, you can always go back in and modify the spline just by selecting the points. Okay, let's go ahead and duplicate this, and then we'll take this spline and move it back, and this circle, and make it a bit smaller. So we'll have a couple of tubes here, and we can take this one and just modify it a little so it doesn't look exactly the same. All right, and that's using a sweep NURBS. And you can see that's not really penetrating in, so what we need to do is just go ahead and select that and make sure it goes right into the side there. There we go. Come in here and kind of raise that up so again it comes in at more of a straight angle. And then you've got some simple tubes using sweep NURBS. Just remember, it's going to take that shape on the top and it's going to sweep it along the spline on the bottom. And if you want to add some caps here, you can take some simple cylinder shapes and place them at the base where that intersects, just to give it a little bit more of a realistic look. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is to go ahead and add some headlights up here on the front. So we'll go ahead and do that next.